The purpose of a hammer is to drive a nail, nothing more. The purpose of a resume is to get you to the interview and nothing more.
Hi, this is Brad Henry. On the podcast, we have stories about the underdog. I've had a lot of victory, but more tragedy in my life has made me very compassionate and perceptive on those who struggle, but those who are not willing to give up. And these stories will hopefully inspire you to become more and be more in life, to give you hope, to know that victory can be right around the corner. And hopefully today's story will be that one to put you in a great mindset to know that everything in life is attainable with persistence and hope. So thank you for listening today, and I think you will really enjoy our channel. The man I have on today, his name is Artie Lynnworth, and he's a great friend, mentor, and guide. And Artie, great to have you on today.
Thank you, Brad. Happy to be here. And I'll reinforce what you just mentioned. This is the third of a three-part series. So right here, if you didn't watch 1 and 2, stop. This video will be here. You can come back to this. So stop and go back if you haven't. For those who've watched the first 2, the quick recap on the first one was how do you prepare from home? And there were 3 key principles there. 1, every job has key skills for success. Whether you're a hamburger flipper or a neurosurgeon, every job has key skills for success. The second point was that your past behavior is the best predictor of future performance. So that for a hiring manager, someone who's looking at your resume or interviewing you, they're going to see how did you do in the past with that skill that we need you to be good at in order to predict how you'll work for us if we hire you. So every job has key skills, past behavior is best predicted for future performance. And we talked about being a STAR communicator, where STAR was the acronym, the way to remember situation, task, action, result. It's a flow of communication. It's how you tell your story so that what you communicate will impact their brain and their heart with memorable stories about how good you are in the past, having success with the skills that are important for them. That was the first of the 3-part series on preparing for job interviews
I
and
have
resume
something I
writing.
want to bring in
Interject.
about your
Yeah.
second point about past behavior.
Okay.
Joe Gibbs, who coached the Washington Redskins, and now he's in the Hall of Fame. And then he has one of the largest NASCAR teams. Before the NFL draft, whoever he was going to draft, he had the scouts go back to high school. What was this kid like? Was he a flash in the pan 1 year in college? Or what was he like growing up? And that meant a lot when you say past behavior. You know, he'd go back. Are you consistent?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Goosebump moment.
Yeah.
Another. Yeah, we keep hitting these moments.
Yeah.
So that's the message. I mean, as an interviewer, you're gambling the future of your company based on
Uh,
how that new hire will do. Your reputation stands on it.
wow.
The performance of your group stands on it. So you need to learn interview techniques. The books that I've written talk about both how to interview and for the other side of the table, how to conduct the interview so that you select the best candidates. And all my book royalties go to a charity. I'm not trying to push book sales. I just like through these podcasts to help others meet their best potential. So as you mentioned, past behavior, that second of the 3 parts of at-home preparation, is key to be able to reflect as an interviewee what you've accomplished so you can communicate it well during the interview, which then led to the second of our 3-part series. What are the 5 stages of the interview? The first is first impressions, that 1 second impression, as well as tell me a little bit about yourself, Brad, where you have a couple minutes to do your elevator speech and set the stage for all that's going to follow, basically focusing on what they need. It's not about you, it's about them,
That,
knowing in advance what they're likely to be tuning into and how your brand, what you can be counted on consistently, past behavior and now, how your brand matches their needs. So that's all first impressions. Then them asking you skill questions. Give me an example from your past when you had a difficult challenge and you had to persist. Give me an example from your past where you had to pay attention to detail to solve a problem. Give me an example from your past, whatever, what skill they're interested in. Your turn to talk to them. And how do you respond to those skill questions? With your star. You tell your flow of story, situation, task, action, result. The third part of the 5 stages of the interview is your time to ask them questions, which should be well prepared, well thought out, and include things like, gee, now that you've gotten to know me, Brad, do you have any hesitations about my ability to do the job? So it really opens up
yep,
your last chance
yeah,
opportunity to defend yourself. Well, you're not qualified enough. Hey, but I learn fast. You're overqualified. Don't worry, I'm not going to be bored. I'm here for the long term. I'm going to be loyal. You can count on me. Whatever they might be concerned about, better to hear about it at that stage of the interview before you move on. So that's the your turn for questions. The fourth part of the interview stages is make the deal, close the deal. You give them a sincere thank you that resonates with something they shared with you and reinforce your brand. And of course, find out what's going on in the next stages of the interview. And the fifth stage is your thank you note, done within 24 hours. It can be an email that follows the pattern of closing the deal, thanking them for something specific that you learned from them and resonated with you, showing your excitement for the job and reinforcing your brand that you're ready for it, you have the skills they're looking for. At
from
home,
what you just said, that is exactly what every CEO salesperson, when, I've owned a number of companies, when I go into a Target, Walmart, corporate headquarters to sell, same thing. Not just my product. How can my product help you?
exactly. The interview process, which we talked about in
Yeah.
step two of the 3 phases, you're the product. You're trying to sell your product. And it's not just pushing it down their throat. You have to see how your product will serve them
Yeah.
and help them. Otherwise, you're never going to make the
Right.
sale. So it
Absolutely.
all ties back to what are
Yeah.
their needs? How can you help them with your product? How can you solve their problems and contribute to their goals and objectives in their organization? So
Absolutely.
we learned about all those fundamentals in at-home preparation and the 5 steps of the interview. Today, we're going to talk about the resume. We're going to talk about the resume. It's a tool that you can wield effectively and stand out from the crowd if you know how to use that tool best. And here's the shocker. I'm going to read you a few quotes,
Okay.
got a few things.
Hmm.
Your network matters more than your resume.
Hmm.
I'm here to talk about a resume, but listen to these statistics. Studies consistently show that the job seekers who use networking have a significantly higher success rate. Not the resume, the networking. Listen to this. Access to the hidden job market. Many positions, sometimes as many as 70%, are never publicly advertised. So you don't even know to send the resume into those companies. And they're filled through employee referrals and internal recommendations. Networking is the primary way to uncover these opportunities. I'm going to reference a book. I know your experts who help with this website can put a link to it.
Hmm.
Unlock the Hidden Job Market. It's a book that talks about what's called informational interviewing, where you don't say, hey, Brad, I want a job with you. Let's talk about that job. It's, hey, Brad, I'm thinking about going into a career of being a commercial airlines pilot, of being a marketer of products, of being a manager, of being whatever, and you're good at that. And John Doe, who's a friend of yours, suggested that I really spend maybe 20 minutes just trying to pick your brain and get some ideas. And on John's recommendation, Brad, can I have 20 minutes of your time just to talk about how you got in that field, what books I should read, what preparation I should have, where am I falling short, what do I need to get ready, uh, so on and so forth. Informational interview helps me actually learn about what I need to know about getting into a particular field. But as important, you get to know about me. And I'm not pressuring you for a job, but you get to know about me. And here's the interesting thing, which ties to this first point. You get to know about me, and when that next job opening comes up, you say, I met that fella, Artie Lynnworth. He was pretty impressive. Maybe I'll give him a call before I waste time spending money on recruiters, before I spend time putting out resume requests, soliciting for 100 resumes to come in. I kind of liked what that guy had to offer. Let me see if he's interested, and now we'll do an interview with him for serious purposes. Unlock the hidden job market. And that book tells you how to do informational interviewing. And the interesting thing is here, it begins with a referral. I didn't send you a resume to get that appointment. I said, John Doe, a friend of yours, recommended I talk to you. John Doe opened the door for me.
Being an
Okay.
airline pilot, that is actually in the past probably 90% of how you got hired was somebody referring someone
Exactly.
else.
Exactly. And you'll say, I'm going to give you some more quotes in just a minute, but that's more powerful than a resume. Now, resume is critical. We're going to talk
Right,
about resumes
right.
because the next step becomes if they're interested, they say, well, send me a resume. I need to look at it, all of the formal procedures. But the point is, if you're only thinking, I got a perfect resume, I'm going to send it out to 100 people a day, that's my goal, it may be lucky and get you one.
Yes. Lucky.
But you'll see 7 times more likely to get it by a referral.
Yeah.
So, informational interviewing is a way to start that process for you to get connected to others. And what you do is when you get finished with your 20-minute interview, informational interview, learning about it, you say to someone like Brad, hey, Brad, this was really helpful to me. I want to continue learning more about preparing for this field. Can you give me two or three names of others like yourself that I might benefit from 20 minutes of their time? And you say, yeah, you ought to talk to Jane Doe, Melissa, and Frank. And then I say, you don't mind if I use your name as a reference and I'll give them a call just like John recommended I talk to you? And you say, no, 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 that's fine. So now my one-on-one first informational interview has now expanded to two or three more. And every one of them, I use your name, Brad, to open that door.
Ah,
And then the next layer of the pyramid, every one of those, I get three names. And I will have, in the course of a few interviews, 20, 30 people that I have not known before that tell me a heck of a lot about the field I'm trying to get into. And I've made myself get exposed to them and learned a lot. And of course, you don't just say thank you and leave. You follow up on their recommendations, you read the books they recommend, and maybe a month later you tell them, hey, I just finished that book and it was really great. And
yeah.
stay connected. That's called networking. And networking, creating that net of people you know, is more powerful than having a good resume. So let me read a few other quick quotes. Bypassing applicant tracking systems, abbreviated ATS. That's those artificial intelligent screens where your resume never even gets to see daylight to a real person. It stops at the robot and something is screening your resume for keywords, key skills, and maybe you'll just fall by the wayside because it never got through. A personal reference is hand carried. Brad, you're my friend. You're in that field. Do you think you know somebody in that company? Would you mind giving them my resume and just talking to them? You just passed by all of the black hole AI robots and you hand it to your friend Jane and say, hey, Artie's a good guy. Here's his resume. He's interested in working for our company. I think he'd be good for us. Why don't you take a look at this? You pass by about 7 layers of filters.
Yeah.
Next bullet, next to last. Gaining advantage in the hiring process. Referred candidates are 7 times more likely to be hired than those who apply cold.
Wow.
Because when an employer vouches for you, it builds a level of trust and credibility. When Brad says I'm a good guy, that counts more in your company
Yeah.
than all of my glowing
Yeah.
remarks and
Right.
accolades in a
Because if
resume.
I trust him, he's putting his self on the line too.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the last bullet, faster hiring and higher retention. Companies favor referrals because referred employees are hired faster and have higher job satisfaction and tend to stay with the company longer. I'm going to give you a couple quick stories here. I'm a part of a senior living community. And of course, the salespeople are always trying to bring in people, and they spend a lot of time on marketing, on sales, on having lunches and bringing people in. But you know what they do for us as an incentive?
Hmm.
They say if you bring in one person that's a friend of yours and they sign on the dotted line and get a contract, Artie, you get a free month rent. And they get some benefits too. Why? Because it's a referral. They know that person's
Yeah.
likely to be happy in this place because I'm a friend of theirs. They'll be living in a place with a friend. I'm going to be happy bringing in another person and I'm going to vouch for them. I'm not going to bring in some
Smart.
person who's going to be not
Yeah.
fitting with the culture
Yeah.
of our community.
Yes.
It's it's the same in a work environment. So our salespeople know it's worth their time, money, and effort if a referral brings somebody in than if they do cold call screening and trying to evaluate people to come in. It's the same for a company. Referrals work. So now, how do you do the networking? I will get to resumes in just a minute, but I want to give you a real example from very recently. Last week, I was doing some career coaching for a woman, a senior person, not a young out of college person, who'd been out of work for several months, and she's got a nice looking resume. I looked at it. She'd had several interviews that were going well, but never closed the deal yet. So we were trying to see what do we do different. So I explored with her, Brad, about her network. And she says, well, I work where I work and I don't have a big network. So I said, all right, let's just play the game for a bit. What are the main areas where you might work? I mean, we don't have to just narrowly look at a job similar to the one you're in. What are some of your strengths and skills? So she rattled off things like, I'm good at project management, I'm good at strategic planning, I'm good at writing. She had a BA in English. I'm good at writing copy for like marketing and so forth. There's just a few. So I said, all right, let's do this. We did this online. I said, South Florida, I live in South Florida. I said, South Florida organizations in grant writing. Boom, I popped up a local chapter of a national organization that meets once a month that talks about grant writing. And they probably bring in speakers and talk about how to do different grants. I did the same thing for project management. And there was the PMI, Project Management Association, whatever, international. And they had a local chapter. And we did the same thing for other aspects of her career interests. And all of a sudden, she had 2 or 3 or 4 local chapters of organizations that she could go to, have a lunch, listen to speakers, sit elbow to elbow, share a business card, write some notes, follow up with people, build a network, and then do informational interviewing with them. All of a sudden, her opportunity expanded in a whole new dimension. So to you, the listener of this video, we're going to, in a moment, talk about how to make your resume stand out from the crowd. But all I wanted to do was reinforce before you even dealing with cold call resumes, do it, that's fine. Work your network.
Mm.
Look for people who you might know work in the company or field that you're interested in pursuing. Look for organizations that will help you meet more people if you don't know people in those fields. Work your network. And that book about the hidden job market. Okay, moving on. The resume is a tool. Okay. So, Brad, you're going to be my guinea pig. You know, I always put you in these unrehearsed positions because you're representing all of your good listeners. I'm going to talk about a tool to drive a nail into a block of wood. Okay. I'm going to show you 4 tools. I'd like you to just reflect briefly after you see the 4 tools and tell me why you think one tool is better than all the rest. Okay?
Okay.
We may have used these same tools ourselves to drive nails in the past.
Okay.
First tool.
Hmm.
Could work. It's a tool. Could work. Could work. I think we know what you're going to pick. So tell me, which of those four tools do you think is the best tool for driving a nail?
Definitely the hammer.
Okay, why? Why is that the best tool?
Um, it's precise. Um, it has strength, momentum where it counts. The others didn't have enough momentum and strength and purpose, I would say.
I love it. I love it. Exactly right. It's a tool that's specifically designed to achieve its purpose. You use the word purpose,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
It's got the weight, it's got the focus, it's
yeah,
got the direction. All of that power
right.
is being driven to achieve its purpose, drive a nail. That flows into what's the purpose of a resume?
To get hired. Well,
Yes,
to
yes. Okay.
ultimately, but to showcase who I am.
You're right. You're right. And I do these workshops and always ask this question when we're talking about resumes and see if you agree and your listeners too. People will say the purpose of a resume is to summarize your past achievements in a chronological order so that people can see what you did when. People will say a resume reflects your strengths and skills. A resume includes your past performance and sometimes will also include personal aspects about you. That's the purpose of a resume.
I want
Many,
to add one thing
yes,
is that from listening to all your wisdom throughout all these podcasts, I need to put in my resume how I can help your company achieve the results.
you're gonna get their attention. Well, let me maybe surprise you and some of your listeners. All of those examples of purpose of a resume that we just ran through, listen, they're all wrong. That's not the purpose of a resume. That's a description of a resume. That would be like my saying,
Ah,
what's the purpose of a hammer? The purpose of a hammer is a metal device with a handle that you can hold. It has some hooks. The purpose of a hammer is that's a description of the hammer. The purpose of a hammer is to drive a nail. And I have a better nail I want to bring this point home.
whoa.
Yeah, where did I get this? I don't know. When I saw this somewhere, I figured this has got to be one of my props. The purpose of a hammer is to drive a nail, nothing more. The purpose of a resume is to get you to the interview and nothing more. That's why you write a
Ah,
resume.
ah,
And of course, I mean, I described a hammer
yep,
if I describe a resume, it has all of those correct descriptions. I was playing a game with you, obviously, and
yeah.
for our listeners, but it has to be clear. The hammer, as you said, is designed to be effective for its purpose. It's designed to drive that resume. Excuse me, to drive that nail. The purpose of a hammer is to drive the nail. The purpose of a resume is to drive you into the interviewer's office. It's to get you into the interview. That's the purpose of the resume. So now, how
That's
does
not going to get me, that's not going to get me the job, but it's going to
no
get me in the
into the
door.
interview? Yes. If I was a designer of a hammer, some kind of mechanical engineer or whatever, I would have to figure out, how do I get the weight and balance? How do I make this tool
Yeah.
be as effective as possible to drive the nail? And now what Artie Lynnworth is going to tell you is how to make your resume achieve its purpose to get you into the interview. All right, what do you have to do to make the resume get their interest? And you talked about it. It's not about you, it's about them. You have to start shaping this resume to hook them, I think like a fish. I got to hook them to say the
Yeah,
bait is there.
yeah,
I got to smell it. I got to want to taste
yeah,
it. I want to
yeah.
bite it. Boom, now I'm hooked. Okay. So what am I doing in my resume to tease them into saying, I need to talk to this man or woman? They got what I'm interested in. And what am I interested in? People who have the skills that are going to be critical to success in the vacancy that I have. So I begin by asking how many people, when you send the resume in, think they're going to spend a lot of time reading it. You know how long an average resume gets read? I'm talking about people back in the day when people read them. Let's forget about the millisecond review by an AI robot. But ultimately, let's assume these have passed the screening and now you get to the next level. They're finally whittling it down to a few. Do you know what the average time that's spent on a resume review is?
30 seconds?
That's too long. It runs,
Wow.
they say like 10, 15 seconds,
Oh,
which means most resumes get trash canned in that first 10 or 15 seconds. The winning ones don't. The winning ones, they'll spend 30 seconds, a minute. They'll read page one, read page two. But how do you get them to page two? How do you get them past the first 15 seconds of looking at the resume? My answer to that is think newspapers. That's a good headline, right?
yes.
Something about cold beer sold here. Who reads a newspaper front to finish?
I don't
What's
know
our
of
normal
anyone.
human reaction? You read the headline. If
Yep,
the headline interests you,
yep,
we learned
yep.
this in elementary school composition classes. You begin with your opening sentence. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you told them, right? Uh, with your introductory sentence, you then build your paragraph. Your paragraph gives them more detail. But if the headline doesn't catch them, they don't read the introductory sentence. If the headline catches them, they'll read the introductory sentence. If that's not continuing to draw them in, they're not going to read the rest. So we have to build a resume built in stages. And I know, Brad, you're going to be helping your listeners with resources that we give them at the end. I'll be sending you some sample resumes that you can share. We're going to
Yep.
walk through a basic resume and I'm going to talk about the highlights and some things to do and not do so that your resume can work for you. But it begins with the very top has your name and a reasonable email address, not something like two beers to go at gmail.com. It may be cute for your college friends, but it's not going to win a lot of points for the screener of resumes. So if you need to
Yeah.
get a serious email address. And then how do they contact you? Phone and so forth. But then quickly, you're going to jump into the first hook. The first hook is usually a grouping of your key skills, so it passes the automatic teller screen, but it also catches their attention. Key skills that match with the ones that they've advertised, that you've analyzed when we talked about our preparation. And even further down, the next layer, I'm peeling the layers of the onion. I like in my resume to have a summary, not just the main words, but give them two or three real examples, whet their appetite, with my attention to detail saved $5,000 in my first 3 months on the job. My team orientation and goal focus allowed us to penetrate new markets by 20% in the first year and one top sales region in the country within my first 2 years. Catch them if those are the key skills that that company is looking for. Then you roll into the rest of the body of the resume. And to just briefly mention, most resumes are built on what's called either chronological, skill, or a combination. Chronological simply means that you are looking at the clock, chronology, your most recent job showing the title, the period of time from this time to that time, and a brief description, scope of the work, and then your accomplishments. Then further down in the resume is the next oldest job until you go back to the beginning of your career. If it's a long-term career, you might consolidate, certainly put more of the important points in the most recent chronology and maybe just a few points for the old history. If you've had a lot of different jobs over a period of time, it's okay to consolidate, let's say a 10-year period that says multiple consulting jobs for 4 different consulting companies or freelance work with achievements in A, B, and C. You can group periods of time. That's okay. This is all chronology based, and in a moment I'll talk about what we want to put into the bullets that hook them. Skill based is another style. Instead of talking chronology, this is what I did last and what I did before that. You're analyzing what skills do they want? They want team-oriented people who pay attention to detail and are goal-focused. So you build your resume that way. Team orientation, and you talk about examples where as a team leader, your team accomplished something. Goal orientation, you talked about over a period of time working for different companies, you were always goal-oriented and met or exceeded the goals that were expected of you. So the resume is built around skills rather than chronology, and within the detail shows when and how you accomplish certain things. Most people expect a chronology-based resume. Some people who've had big gaps in their time, maybe for personal reasons, they had to take care of an ailing member of the family, and for 5 years were out of the market. They may feel that it's awkward in a chronology to show these big gaps and having to get into reasons why, I had my mother had dementia and I had a, you don't have to get into that. You can just focus on the skills. And then if they like what they're seeing, they'll bring in, you can talk about that. If they say, well, I noticed you
I got
didn't
you.
arrange it
Yep.
chronologically, you can explain it. What you want to get is in the door. So a skill based is a way to jump right into the skills that they're interested in and show you have success at that. And the third type is simply a combination. You maybe have some chronology and some skills emphasized to build your resume that way. But for the sake of these examples and the ones that I'll share with you, they're all chronology based, which is probably 80-20. 80% of your resumes will typically be in the chronology format. And then at the end of the resume, usually at the end, unless it's fresh out of college, you'll put your academic degrees, certifications, and so forth. The question sometimes comes up about, do you put any personal information in there? Generally, no, unless some of the skills you can show are more easily
Uh,
explained in a personal piece. Maybe you didn't have certain experiences at work, but as a volunteer leader, maybe you're an individual contributor, let's say accountant, you're doing a lot of accounting work and you have a lot of stuff, but you're aspiring to be a leader and you don't have leadership jobs yet. But in your volunteer role, either with your church or with your history club or with your United Way agency that you volunteer for, you took a leadership role. And with the United Way, you helped lead the campaign for your county and got 10% more donations than they did in any prior year. That's personal time. But if you're looking to demonstrate leadership skills, that could be a place to put it.
hmm.
So, but normally you don't put much in there. And of course, don't shoot yourself on the foot. You don't have to be showing your volunteer role in some radical organization that 10% of the population may believe in and 90% of the population thinks you're an idiot to belong to that group.
Right.
Why do that to
Yeah.
yourself? Okay, you can still have your own beliefs and
Yep.
then your pastimes doing what you want, but there's no place for it in a resume. That's the basic flow of a resume. So now we come into what do you actually put in your hooks, the first hooks to grab them, and then in the body of your chronology when you worked at a certain place. I will refer everybody to our first and second podcasts that talked about stars. And again, another convenient tool I'll offer to people, and you'll have them eventually on your website, is a place, a worksheet where you put in the skill of interest to the company, your situation, task, action, or result. And I actually have one of all my make believe, but it's a sample that shows you're not writing a book. You're just pulling in bullet points that show triggers for
Wow.
you. This is your at-home preparation that we talked about, where you talk about here's a skill that the company's interested in, here's a situation, you set the context, here's the task I had. It has to be a number and a time frame. It's like a goal is not just I want to lose weight, that's a wish or an aspiration. A goal, I want to lose 5 pounds in a month. So when you're talking about a task, attention to detail, the task was I had a month to save $5,000, a time and an amount. The bullets that go into the actions are all of the things you did to, let's, in this example, pay attention to detail. And result, what's result? It matches the task. You had a month to save 5,000. The result was in 3 weeks, I saved 10,000. That's a great result for a skill of pay attention to detail. Now, here's the best part. Your resume is simply cut and paste, skill and result. Pull those out of these two sides of the chart, put them together. I call that coupling. Couple them together. Skill, result. While working for ABC Corporation, my attention to detail saved $10,000 in 3 weeks. What a powerful bullet that is. And they're going to say, how'd you do that? You want to find out? Invite me for
Yeah.
the interview. Every bullet becomes a hook to learn more from you, and they're going to have to invite you in to learn more.
Wow.
That's the secret of preparation. That's the secret of STAR. That's the secret of a winning resume that achieves its purpose to get you in the door. With that, I think we've covered the ground because you want to build your networks. You want to have a resume that gets you in the door. And a resume will do that when it addresses their skills that they're interested in by showing your past performance, having success with those key skills, and positive quantifiable results, measurable, in coupled comments in the resume that will attract their attention and say, I need to call this person and learn more.
Mm.
So with that, any questions from your standpoint before we wrap up this third in the series podcast,
I
Brad?
think that that second point, references. Sometimes if you have a great reference, they don't even look at your resume. Sure, you have to have it for HR and things like that, but you're right on with the networking is having somebody come in to the CEO or the hiring person and say, hey, this is a great person here. I believe they could help our company in a great way.
Right, right. That was the reference and the voice of support that gets you in the door, and then that moves you back into podcast two to talk about your first impressions, the questions they'll ask, your questions to them, close the deal, and write a good thank you.
Yeah,
If you work through these three podcasts, you can watch them over and over again.
yeah.
And I know you'll put a link on our website. I'm happy to answer your questions. I'm not going to write your resume for you, but if you've listened to the podcasts, if you've taken the time to read either of these books to help you prepare for interviewing and resume writing, and you're getting stuck, I'll be happy to help you through those log jams and help you get the best job you possibly can.
Well, Artie, it's as always a pleasure. I learn so much every time I talk to you, and I know that if I do learn, that everybody else will too. So thank you for being on the show today,
You're
and
welcome.
I sure appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. You take care.
Okay. Good luck to you and all of your listeners. Take care.
Thank
Bye
you,
bye.
Artie. Thank you for listening today. Quite a segment. Please subscribe to our channel so you get all the latest updates and you can see all the past great stories of people who have overcome. I'm Brad Henry. Thank you for tuning in.